Welcome to Revenue Mavericks, the podcast where today's most iconic GTM leaders break down the mindset and the moves that defy the status quo. In each episode, operators share the playbooks they've used to change the game and deliver outsized growth. And now, here's the host of Revenue Mavericks, CEO and co-founder of Carrot, Justin Schreiber.
All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of the Revenue Mavericks, the show where we bring the great sales and go-to-market executives onto the show, find out what makes them tick, and more importantly, how they're able to deliver the kind of results that they're able to achieve. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Mike Ogden. Mike has an amazing background, currently heads up worldwide revenue operations at Cloudflare, but he's got some amazing experience behind him coming from great companies like ArcTrace. He's been at HashiCorp, started off, or actually mid-career, Palo Alto Networks. So Mike knows what it takes to build a go-to-market machine. Mike, so great to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks. I love being part of this. Thanks for thinking of me.
All right, we always open up with a question just to get the juices flowing.
All right.
Related to an experience that you had outside of the professional arena that actually shaped how you show up today as a professional.
Okay, great. Let's see. I hope, Justin, this doesn't sort of sound like a softball answer, but I'm gonna say it's probably the environment in which I was raised that sort of outside the professional world sort of led to who I am in the professional world. So I'm about to share something about myself and be transparent. I had a great childhood, a really good one, but I was raised by a single mom, right? No dad around, no brothers, sisters. It was me and mom, which meant I had a very humble beginning, I would say, and sort of had we were sort of on our own to figure it out. And at a very young age, I started throwing newspapers because I sort of had to do it, right? I had a job when I was 10 years old throwing newspapers. I've had a job ever since, to this day. I've never not. And I kind of worked really all through, through my childhood or through my younger years, I'd say. When I was in high school, I worked. When I was in college, I had 2 jobs during the school year and 3 jobs in the summer. And I'm not complaining about any of that, by the way. Sort of just who I am. Yeah. And now, when I sort of, later in my life, I think back to those early days, which were great again. I probably didn't know it at the time. There was probably room to fail, but I didn't know it at the time. At the time, I felt like I was in this place where there was just sort of no room to fail, and I had to sort of just figure it out. And I sort of think about that and how it shaped me. I think I grew up with this idea that, look, I just didn't want to lose. I'm in a sales organization now, right? Or my whole career surrounded by sales. We find ourselves often with people who like to compete. Mm-hmm. I like to compete. But what's sort of, I think, different about myself that I've come to recognize is that success for me is almost at times been almost embarrassing if I've had any success. Like when I'm in high school and I win a track meet and I'm on the podium, it was almost embarrassing for me. Or if I was in a professional environment and I was called on stage to win an award, it was almost embarrassing for me. The winning wasn't the motivator. The motivator for me was that I just hate to lose. Like that is just sort of who I am. I just can't lose. And so what that formed in my early years of just, look, I got to figure out a way and we're not going to lose. And I credit my single mom that I talked about who helped instill, sort of brought that in me, but in an environment that was still very loving and a great environment. But we're just not going to lose and we're going to go figure it out. And so, I guess, how does that translate to my professional world? I'd say that formative experience is really taught me, I guess, how to drive hard and how to figure out how to get things done and to be maybe a little gritty and to still do it in a human way. But look, we're just not going to lose. And for me, that has prepared me well, I think, for a career in operations. Feels like my experience is all the problems sort of find their way to operations. I don't know if that's true. It's at least my experience. Like we're always a lot of great things happening, but the problems and the issues are ours to solve. And when things sort of go wrong, they come to us.
Yeah.
And look, we're not going to lose. We're going to figure that out. We're going to be gritty. And I think those sort of types of values really help in operations. So maybe I'd point to that experience.
So the decision that you made to go out and find a job delivering papers at the age of 10, what inspired that decision?
Maybe selfishness. I don't know. It was sort of like if I wanted to go to 7-Eleven and buy some beef jerky, the money was not coming from mom. That was sort of mine to do. But actually, the real answer is at 10 or 11, I knew that as a teenager I was going to want a car, and that wasn't going to happen unless I bought it. Uh-huh. So I started saving money. I got that paper route, $100 a month at the time if I was lucky.
Yep.
And I saved that money for a car. And then this wonderful single mom made this thing with me, like for every dollar you save, I'll match it, even though she had no money. So I spent years saving for this car, and so did she. She had to save for it. That's what inspired the paper route. Selfishness, really. It wasn't to put food on the table. It's because, I wanted to get a car.
Yeah, so much there. The idea that you've got this long-term goal that you're working towards, nobody laid out the blueprint for you. You had to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And basically it came down to your resourcefulness and pulling yourself up that ultimately got you to that destination of getting the car.
I think the resourcefulness is actually, that's really at least in part at the heart of what I'm trying to describe. And again, in operations where many of the problems find their way to us, not always knowing the right answer, that resourcefulness is a quality I think that helps us. Yeah.
It reminds me of an experience I had. I've got 5 kids. They're all grown up now, but top of mind for me was always, how do you build resilient kids that can find their way in the world and be successful?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard of a guy named Seth Godin. He's a famous marketer, lots of thought leadership. And I actually had a chance to go to a seminar where he took questions from the audience. And at the time, my 3 oldest kids were girls. And the question that I had for Seth was, how do you raise resilient, confident young women?
Oh, yeah.
And he said, as early as possible, challenge them to do hard things.
Yeah.
And I said, that's interesting. So I went home that weekend, and the hard thing
had you felt like you had done that, or was it too late?
Well, they were still pretty young. The oldest was 8 at the time.
Okay, good.
I went home and I said, hey, we're going to go to a movie, but you guys need to figure out, tell me what movie you want to go to. What time does it start? Where is it? And how are we going to get there? Here's the internet, figure out the bus schedule. And they'd never done any of this before. It was amazing. They were on the internet. They were looking at bus maps. They told me where we needed to go. They printed stuff out. And we made it to the movie. We were chasing a couple buses. We didn't find where we needed to be. But my daughter now, my oldest daughter is 26. She still takes the bus all over the place.
Yeah.
And it's part of her DNA. And just that point of, we want to go to the movie, figure it out, and challenging people to do that. And it translates so well into a professional environment as well. If you bring that mindset in the professional environment, you're invincible.
Yeah, I think that's right. I love that story. By the way, I have 2 boys. Well, 2 men. I mean, they're both taller than me, but they're probably the maturity boys. I don't know. Anyway, one of them, very early in high school, wanted to go overseas by themselves for a summer, and that made me and mom very nervous. And he created that challenge of hard things sort of for himself. Our challenge was to let him do it. Complete fly on the plane by himself, overseas, passport for the first time all by himself. And they rise to it, right? Rise to it. I think, and that experience, I think, serves them even today. So
yeah, I was having a conversation yesterday actually with one of my directs. One of the people on her team was an intern, and so we talk a lot about OKRs, as most companies do.
Yeah.
So my direct had a set of OKRs, and she said, I've got this intern. Should I ask them to put any OKRs together? And I said, I don't know exactly what you call it, if it's an OKR or just a goal, But absolutely, you should set a vision for what you want that person to do, and then have them come back to you and tell you the how. Because if you don't do that now, they're going to progress in their career and they won't have had that opportunity. And you're conditioning them either to come to you for the answers or to bring you the answers. But it starts the day that you hire that junior intern.
Yeah. I could relate to that. It's a great story.
All right. So question number 2, inflection points. You're obviously wildly successful now. Awesome company. You're heading up global revenue operations. You didn't start here. What was the inflection point in your career that you think really moved the needle? And how did that set you up for the position you're in today?
Well, first, I don't know about wildly successful, but I do feel at least fortunate. I've had I guess, at this stage in my career, there's probably a number of inflection points. So as I think about maybe a profound one, I'm gonna go early again in sort of my life, early in my career, at least in this example. I'll give a little context first, and then I'll answer your question. As a younger person, I was convinced that I wanted to be a stockbroker when I was younger. Even in high school, I'm throwing those newspapers. I used to look in the paper at the stock prices and pretend like I was trading, even though I had them. Anyway, studied, learned, showed up to college. I thought, wow, the route to being a stockbroker is to get a finance degree. So I studied. I had no interest in finance. I had only interest in being a stockbroker, but I studied finance and investment. I got that degree. I got a couple degrees. That was one. I leave college with one goal. That is to be a stockbroker. And so I've been now thinking about it 10 years or something. And I don't know, some of your audience may remember Dean Witter, some may not. But at the time, Dean Witter was the second biggest brokerage firm in the country. And I competed with over 100 people for 2 jobs as a stockbroker. And I got it. Anyway, so I became a stockbroker. And so I thought like I did it, right? Like, again, can't fail, gonna win. And this is what I wanted to do. And I thought my career was set. Mm-hmm. And then I found out sort of quick, it didn't take long to figure out that being a stockbroker, like had nothing to do with all the sexy things that you see in the movies and picking stocks and all these high tech companies. Like, it had nothing to do with that. It was like pure and simple. It was a sales job. And I found myself sitting in this dark, cold office at night, cold calling people while they're trying to eat dinner and trying to get them to buy a mutual fund or something, and being hung up on 99 out of 100 times, right? It was a sales job. Okay, so I did it for a couple of years. And out of that couple of years, what I guess I learned about myself was, one, I did like sales. I kind of felt like, there was something about it that I was drawn to. But I also figured out I didn't like carrying a quota. And I also sort of wanted to operate in an ethical model. And at the time, that was sort of challenging in that field. But anyway, I knew I liked sales. I didn't want to carry a quota. And I was trying to figure out then, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my career? And I through that sort of experience, I then found myself in a high tech company, once again on purpose, supporting sales. And this is sort of that for me. This was this inflection point that I knew for the rest of my career, I'm going to be dedicated to operations. Like this was the profession where I could stay close to the action. I always felt like sales is where the action is. I could stay close to the action, but knowing who I am, I could probably contribute more on the operational side. So really, I would say that was a formative early point in my career, and I've never left it. I mean, I've been part of a sales org for my entire career ever since.
Yeah. So many successful people I've talked to, that's what it comes down to. They're self-aware enough to know what they love, what they're good at, and find a fit, rather than forcing themselves into a career that someone else said would be good for them, or in the eyes of whatever, that's a prestigious career. They figured out what they loved, what they were good at, and they proactively went after that.
Yeah, I do. There was moments in that journey where I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? Like, this is awful. And I've spent 10 years thinking about it. And how am I gonna, like I almost had my identity challenged.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. But there's more than one path, and it helped me learn. So yeah, that was pivotal.
I kind of, was raised in this environment where, yeah, I constantly heard you can be anything you want to be, you can do anything you want to do. And that's the mentality that I brought into the work world. And so any job that I approached, I would say to myself, I can do this and I can do a great job. A light bulb, though, went off for me when I was in business school and I was in a finance class. Robert Merton was the professor. He was one of the guys that won the Nobel Prize in economics for the Black-Scholes model. So this guy was hardcore. The people in this class with me were going to be hedge fund managers, just the rock stars of the finance world. And day one, I get into this class. And number one, I realize I have no idea what this guy's talking about. And number two, I realize I don't care what this guy is talking about.
Right.
So I come home and I tell my wife, yeah, I'm in this class and I don't know what to do because it's going to be hard and I don't really want to do it. And she said, you don't need to be a finance guy. That simple statement for me unlocked so much. It was like she gave me permission that I didn't have to be great at everything. And that was kind of one of the first moments where I realized we need to turn this idea that we can do anything around to we can do what we want to do and what we're great at.
Yeah.
That's a game changer.
Yeah, I relate to that. It's a great story.
All right. So question number 3.
All right.
Over the decades, you have developed a strong point of view. I'm sure a set of best practices, frameworks that you now apply to your discipline to achieve excellence. I'd love to hear about one of those frameworks or one of those sets of best practices that you use in your job.
Okay. Yeah, in our world and profession has changed. So some of those frameworks, have to change or they don't always work today. But as you asked that question, maybe I'll share one. I don't know if it's a best practice. We'll see, but I'll share a framework anyway that I've been thinking about at Cloudflare. So if I sort of back up to prior to my arrival at Cloudflare, by the way, I've been here about a year and a half, but prior to my arrival here, not uncommon, we had a lot of operational teams in the go-to-market org. We had, there was a team supporting sales, operational team supporting sales. Separately, in an inside sales BDR organization, we had an operations team. We had a partner operations team, post-sales team. There's operational folks in marketing anyway. And so the president of revenue who asked me to join the company also asked me to think about maybe consolidating operations, right? And even it's sort of that even came out publicly. Let's consolidate ops, and that put a little bit of I don't know if a potential in the system, but it did get people to say, well, shoot, what does that mean? Is it redundant roles and who reports to who and who does what anyway? So I walked into that environment and I spent a little bit of time sort of learning about Cloudflare and some of the areas I thought we could grow or, help out with. And I went back to that president of revenue, the boss, and I said, hey, look, you know what? I think I think the way we move the needle here, what we really need to do is ensure that marketing and sales and customer success and partner, that we're all running from a common operating model with shared tools, shared metrics, and handoffs across the whole customer journey. And this isn't about consolidating, but what really matters here from an operational perspective is connected operations. And so this framework maybe I'll just speak to for a couple of minutes because we're still sort of figuring it out. But this framework is connected operations. And sort of kind of branded it here within my team. Like, hey, let's think about what connected operations means. It almost, the way I said it almost sounds like RevOps, but the reality is RevOps is it's a profession that we're still defining, and it looks different in every place. But this idea of connected operations. And at least a group or an org looking across the whole thing.
Yeah.
What does that really mean? So I'll give a couple of examples, even if they feel obvious. I'll probably think of more when we're done. I'll think about them tonight. But one of the things we really wanted to put down on paper to make it real is the end-to-end, sort of mapping of revenue, like the revenue across all of the go-to-market functions. Could we map that out? MQL to SDR to AE to CS to partner to renewals and expansion, so that we have clarity of ownership and clarity on expectation of sort of what good looks like. And then if we have that sort of revenue mapping, how connected ops, how do we connect that through our systems and tools? And, it'd be nice to have a unified tech stack. Now we're far from that. We have a long way to go, but to at least have a vision of what does a unified tech stack look like? And as we're thinking about our different tools, even if they're separate tools, are they connected in some sort of way between CRM and marketing automation and our CS platforms? And now if we've sort of, I guess, mapped the revenue and think about our systems to support that, how do we get a view into the business that is shared? It's an operational thing to talk about metrics and KPIs, but instead of each team sort of measuring in isolation, meaning our CS leader has to think about CS and our inside sales leader thinks about inside sales. But do we have do we all look at all of it and share in it? And so I hope I don't offend anyone when I say this. So I'm speaking sort of past experience. I've gone to a meeting where the marketing team is giving a readout. This is only an example. It's illustrative. Don't want to offend. But, I'm in a marketing meeting and they're showing all the great things they're working on, which they are. And a lot of the metrics are great. And then the meeting ends and I go to a forecast call and no one's calling plan. Like how that feels unconnected to me.
Yeah.
So do we have this idea of shared insights, decisions, and then sort of maybe layering on top of those things, the revenue, the systems, the metrics is connect in a connected way is sort of the operating cadence. Do we operate separately, or do we have common pipeline reviews so that one's not green and we're not calling plan? Does everybody get involved in a forecast call? Do we have customer health reviews that are end to end? And that idea for me has been this idea of this connected operations, other than the CRO, who is really looking at the whole thing from end to end. And I think that's something we could do in operations.
Yeah. Wow. That, as you were talking, a light bulb just went off for me, because that's something that the companies I've been at have struggled at all their career, is just getting that efficient process in place that really moves the needle. While you were talking, I was thinking about my daughter. She's a cross country or a track runner.
Yeah.
There's a lot of relays. And these relays are determined by tenths of a second, hundredths of a second. You lose 2 seconds if you drop the baton.
Yeah.
Passing from one to another. And as I think about the inefficiencies, most organizations within their own organization are pretty good at doing their job. It's always the handoffs.
It's the handoff. It's exactly the handoff. Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't want to misrepresent. We don't have that all figured out at Cloudflare. We're working on that in my org. We have a vision for it. I'd say we're better now than we were a year ago, and next year we'll be better than we are now. It's hard to do, but we have a vision for it. And when you sort of chart it this way, where those handoffs happen, and you sort of when the baton's going to be handed to you, and when you need to give it away. It's less than perfect, but yeah.
The other thing that you said that stood out to me is have everybody in the same room discussing the same problem. So many times I think, and I'm guilty of this as well, we organize the teams around functional jobs as opposed to an outcome. If the outcome is to deliver revenue, we need all the people associated with that process in the room together. We don't need a meeting for pipe gen and a meeting for the SDRs and a meeting for the sales team. Like, we're all working to try to post some numbers. So let's get a call with everybody together so that we've got this shared idea. That's powerful.
Yeah, that fits right into this idea. All right. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about tech as well. Clearly, there are specialized things that need to happen across functions. How do you think about tech, though, that is able to see across all of the different functions and give you kind of a holistic view of the end-to-end process?
Yeah, that's aspirational. I would love to be there, right? To now what we have. Maybe just being transparent, and I would imagine a lot of orgs look like this. We have a lot of without being connected. That means that a lot of these functions sort of matured or grew on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And so when those sort of grow on their own, sometimes you also have standalone tool sets. And again, with this maybe very obvious statement, who's looking across the whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
Without that, you end up with a lot of these separate tools in our own environment. And I'm not going to talk about Cloudflare, just a general statement. Places I've been, I see a lot of the same tools in an org doing the same thing, different tools in the same org doing the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. And you get a lot of this overlap. So I think this idea of a unified platform, it doesn't mean one tool does everything. Certainly not. But where you can have a handful of common tools that can bridge this whole thing, I think we're way better off. Because, by the way, then the metrics become easier, the visibility, because you know this better than anyone. But tools are meant to reinforce the process. That's all they really are. Like, let's talk about how the business should work. And then tools are meant to reinforce it. What we just sort of talked about is connecting all of it. Mm-hmm. That's the business cadence and everything. The tools should just sit on top of it. Well, if you have 100 tools sitting on top, it's hard to keep that connected and reinforced.
Yeah.
And so where you can share, I actually absolutely do believe in, that we're in a place now where we see so many emerging tools and technologies allowing us to have, to serve the needs of multiple functions with a fewer set of tools.
Yeah. From a tech perspective, I find that a really powerful lever are the dashboards that we put in front of people. Mm. If the dashboards are different function to function, you pretty much know that the connective tissue that you need doesn't exist. You gave a great example. Marketing says we're crushing it from qualified leads. And then you walk into the forecast call, we're going to miss our number. I find that if you create a unified dashboard that everybody is looking at, it gets everybody on the same page really quick. And then the level below that is, what is your function doing to support that? So maybe before the marketers look at the number of qualified leads, they're looking at the conversion rates to closed won opportunities.
Yes.
And that's a key metric.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of stay on that same theme. And, again, we're working on these things. It's never perfect. But since we were talking about pipeline and forecast, we are trying very hard here to think about the fact that everyone owns pipeline. It's not just marketing and sales that own pipeline, like everybody owns pipeline.
Yeah.
RevOps should own pipeline in some sort of way. Okay, now if that's true, then that would mean we wouldn't have different dashboards. We'd have one. And we would have one view of pipeline. Yeah. And the drill in that you just described is then, now that we all own pipeline, and we have one view of pipeline, we do have to drill in to say, how are we all participating? That almost becomes an activity. What are the activities that we're doing? The numbers are showing up in the dashboard. What are all the activities that we all do? Knowing how the baton is handed off and knowing that whole revenue map. What are the activities that we're doing in each of the organizations that drive the common goal of pipeline? I should in RevOps be able to talk about activities that are happening in my own org that lead to either bigger deals or faster deals or pipeline. Our customer success leader, I believe, should be able to talk about activities that are happening in customer success that may lead to more pipeline or better pipeline, or not losing revenue because we're retaining our customers, right? It's one goal, one dashboard, and understanding of the activities that everybody contributes. I think.
So you just touched on a third thing, which is the mindset that people bring to the equation. I worked with a really inspiring leader once, and the leader would always ask, what do you do? That was the opening question. And initially, the responses were, oh, I'm a marketer, or I'm in customer success. And the leader would always say to that marketer, you are a revenue delivery person.
Yeah. And
pretty soon people got it. And they stopped saying I'm a marketer or I'm a customer success person. I am a revenue delivery person, or whatever it was at the time. And Then the second question, which you were kind of getting to, is how are you fulfilling your role as a revenue delivery person? Now that changed depending on the function, but again, it all laddered up. But that mindset that the leader created got everybody out of that siloed point of view into the team orientation that we're all in this trying to achieve the same thing together.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. And by the way, I should say this idea that everyone owns pipeline is not my idea. That came from another leader.
Yeah.
And another time in my career, not long ago, that was trying to get at exactly what you just described. I'm trying to bring that to Cloudflare, but yeah, that really resonates.
So 3 great ideas there. Number 1, organize cross-functional teams around the mission. Don't create siloed teams. Number 2, put systems and processes in place. They give everybody the same vantage point and perspective visibility. And number 3, change the mindset so that everybody's in that same mode of trying to accomplish and work towards a common goal. Those are great.
Well said. Look how smart we are. That was pretty good, Justin.
We got it all figured out, Mike.
Yeah.
Before anybody else throws another problem at us, we should probably end on that high note.
I like it. Yeah.
It's been an awesome conversation, though. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom.
This is really fun, and I got to learn a lot about you too. So thanks for sharing. This is fun, Justin.
All right, there we go.
Right. Take care.
You've been listening to Revenue Mavericks, sponsored by Tarot. Tarot is the AI-native revenue operating system that Revenue Mavericks count on to increase forecasting precision and sales productivity. Follow Tarot on LinkedIn for new episode drops and updates. Thanks for listening.